A day like this does not always arrive with noise, but it can change how you view this roster. Today in Santa Clara, the conversation starts with a rookie who may already have a powerful voice inside the building fighting for him. Then it turns to an offensive possibility directly tied to Kittle's recovery, moves into the long-term bet on Deommodore Lenoir, and closes with Mike Evans basically explaining why he came here to help Brock Purdy attack the end zone. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because this feels like contender business. The first story only feels small if you treat the draft like a cold list of names. Jaden Dugger arrived in San Francisco as a fifth-round pick out of Louisiana, and normally, a rookie in that spot has to battle for every rep, every training camp snap, every opportunity to make the final roster. But there is one detail here that changes the feel of this story. J. Wright wanted this kid, badly. Wright lived through those intense Seattle rivalry years, and he knows what a long, fast, smart, physical linebacker is supposed to look like. He watched Dugger's early tape and saw something that does not show up perfectly on a spreadsheet. He saw reaction speed. He saw lateral movement. He saw a player who on a reverse started flowing one direction and then snapped back the other way with the kind of quickness many linebackers simply do not have. For a position coach, that is raw gold. And there is a pretty interesting irony in all of this. The 49ers already had Fred Warner. They brought Dre Greenlaw back. They had other names in that linebacker room. And even then, Wright seems to have looked at Dugger and thought, I can develop this guy. This guy has tools. He might not be ready today, but the frame, the movement, and the instincts are worth building up. That does not make the road easy. A fifth-round rookie still has to survive training camp, contribute on special teams, fight through depth, and adjust to the speed of the NFL. But on a contender, finding hidden value can matter almost as much as bringing in stars. January demands depth. Injuries demand depth. A long season absolutely demands depth. And when a former player like J. Wright puts his eyes, his experience, and his reputation behind a rookie, I pay attention. Dugger may start out as a quiet piece, but he could become that name fans only understand after he makes a third down play or saves a rep on special teams, and suddenly everyone realizes Santa Clara saw something before the rest of the league did. Take a breath with me, because the second story is not an announced move. It is one of those possibilities that makes a contender fan base look at John Lynch's phone and think, if there is even a small opening here, you have to at least measure the distance. Kyle Pitts is in a tricky situation in Atlanta. After a season with 88 catches, 928 yards, 5 touchdowns, and second-team All-Pro recognition, the Falcons used the franchise tag to stop him from reaching the open market. That leaves Pitts on a one-year deal, with a high price, team control, and one huge question hanging above everything. What exactly is the long-term plan? That is where the 49ers become a team worth watching. So far, there has been no public report saying Lynch has called Atlanta, and no public report saying the Falcons are looking to move Pitts. But the NFL does not wait for every situation to become obvious before aggressive teams start thinking. This league runs on narrow windows, unusual fits, and moves that look unlikely right up until somebody decides the cost might actually make sense. For San Francisco, the reason is obvious, and it hurts. George Kittle is coming off an Achilles injury from the 2025 postseason. Kittle is still the soul, identity, force, and intelligence of this offense. But an injury like that changes the way you plan. You cannot build an entire campaign assuming a veteran returns at peak form, taking on the same workload, with the same explosion and the same physical edge every single Sunday. Pitts would not be an emotional replacement for Kittle. Nobody replaces what Kittle means to the red and gold. Pitts would be strategic protection. He would give Brock Purdy a 6'6" athletic weapon who can line up outside, attack the middle of the field, win against linebackers and safeties, and force defenses to reveal coverage before the snap. For Kyle Shanahan, that is an invitation to get dangerous. Picture a defense looking at a package with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, and at some point Kittle and Pitts together once George is healthy. If the opponent gets heavier to stop the run, Pitts becomes a nightmare matchup in the passing game. If they answer with smaller defensive backs, the 49ers can punish them physically on the ground. That is the beauty of Shanahan's system when it has pieces that threaten defenses in different ways. The obstacle, of course, is the price. Atlanta tagged Pitts because it understands his value. A move like that would probably involve meaningful draft compensation, future contract conversations, and the confidence to spend resources on a 25-year-old player coming off a major season. For Lynch, the question would be brutal. Protect the capital and trust Kittle's gradual return with Jake Tongas holding things down, or attack a rare opportunity to protect Purdy and push this championship window even harder. I do not see this as empty fantasy. I see it as contender thinking. Ordinary teams sit back and wait. Teams that understand Super Bowl chances do not last forever. Keep monitoring anything that could raise the ceiling of the roster. After talking about a possible offensive weapon, I want to shift to something that says a lot about how a team stays strong without depending only on headlines. Deommodore Lenoir. Lenoir is not the name that dominates national debates every week. He does not always get all-pro level buzz. He does not turn into an easy talking point on lazy shows. But inside a roster trying to survive the NFC, he represents something extremely valuable. Young stability at a position that is expensive, difficult, and completely unforgiving. The comparisons show exactly why. Lenoir, to this point, has 64 starts, 326 tackles, 8 interceptions, and 31 passes defended in this early career window. When you put that start next to names like Dunta Robinson, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Aqib Talib, and A.J. Bouye, the conversation gets very interesting. Not because every one of them became a legend on the exact same path, but because most of them continued playing starter-level football for years after a similar beginning. That is the part this fan base needs to appreciate. Quarterback is a position where every single mistake fills the screen. If a guy slips, reads the play one step late, or loses leverage, the ball flies over him and everybody immediately points. So when a player gets on the field early, plays a lot, handles volume, signs an extension, and enters his physical prime at 26, that is not just paperwork, that is foundation. The toughest recent comparison might be Murphy-Bunting because of the team change and the injury. Bouye had a strong peak and then had to deal with wear and tear. But when you look at Carlton Davis maintaining starter status on a high-level defense, Dunta Robinson playing well close to 30, and especially Aqib Talib becoming even more impactful after 27, the ceiling of this conversation begins to change. I am not saying Lenoir is going to become Talib. That would be unfair pressure, as if it were some guaranteed path. What I am saying is that the age, the usage, the production, and the contract put the 49ers in a very good position. They are not betting on an older corner trying to hang on. They are betting on a corner who has already proven he belongs on the field and now has to turn consistency into an even bigger impact. And I want to hear from this fan base. Do you see Lenoir as a solid, steady starter? Or do you believe he still has that next leap in him to become a truly decisive defender in this secondary? Because for me, if he climbs one more level in 2026, this defense changes temperature. Then we get to the kind of story that makes a fan sit up a little straighter, because this is not fit theory, not historical comparison, and not just future talk. This is a massive veteran in Santa Clara sounding like a player who came here to solve one very specific problem: turning presence into touchdowns. Mike Evans was the 49ers' biggest addition in free agency, and the expectation around him is direct. San Francisco wants him to keep being one of the most dangerous red zone threats in the NFL, the kind of target who changes the geometry of the field when the space gets tight, when the defense knows the ball could come his way, and when every detail turns into a physical battle. Evans understands that mission. He spoke with reporters on Wednesday and put his finger right on the pressure point. In the red zone, you have to win in tight situations. He talked about his leaping ability, his body control, the reps he has built throughout his career, and his desire to get into that red area and bring a different dynamic to this offense. That, to me, is the point. The 49ers did not bring Evans in as roster decoration. They brought in a 6'5", 230-plus-pound receiver with a history of winning above defenders, defeating bad leverage, and turning contested balls into points. And when he says he has to get open for Brock, the story gains another layer. Brock Purdy has already shown he can operate this offense with intelligence, rhythm, and guts. What San Francisco has to do now is protect that quarterback with answers. An answer in the middle of the field, an answer against man coverage, an answer when the drive reaches the end zone and cannot be allowed to die as a field goal. Evans also made it clear that he loves Brock, that Purdy was a major reason he chose the 49ers, that the quarterback throws a great ball, is smart, works seriously every day, and is already developing timing with him. That is not a small thing. When a veteran of that stature buys into the idea, looks at the quarterback, and sees a reason to enter a new chapter of his career, there is respect there. There is trust. There is a belief that this offense can give him real chances to decide big games. And one thing Evans said should probably be posted on the locker room wall: do not take these opportunities for granted. Evans knows a strong roster does not last forever. He knows a career goes fast. He knows a contender has to act like a contender before the season sends the bill. When he looks at the 49ers and says this group stacks up with the best in the league, he is embracing the weight. He is not coming here for a vacation. He is coming to help a team that has already knocked on the door finish the job. That is the emotional value of Mike Evans in San Francisco to me. He does not have to erase anybody or take on the role of savior. He just has to do what he has always done. Win with his body, scare defenses, give Purdy confidence, and turn tight snaps into points. If that connection clicks early, the Niners' red zone stops being only a pressure zone and becomes a punishment zone. I look at these 4 stories and see one thing. The 49ers are trying to protect a window that does not forgive distraction. I see a rookie who can grow with J. Wright in his ear, a bold possibility involving Kyle Pitts, a serious bet on Lenoir's evolution, and Mike Evans arriving with an end zone mindset, not a sightseeing mindset. To me, that is Santa Clara thinking like a contender. Not every possibility turns into a move. Not every projection becomes reality. But the standard has to be this: find the advantage wherever it exists. If you believe this roster can still finish the job, subscribe to the channel and stay with me, because this season is bringing real pressure.